Good morning, everyone. Call to order and roll call. Go ahead. Okay. The July 10th, 2023 Audit Oversight Committee is called to order. Will the city clerk call the roll, please?
Chair Seaman?
Here.
Vice Chair Price?
Here.
Member Gahn?
Here.
Member Allen Polinsky?
Here.
Member Karcher is excused. Thank you. You have a quorum.
Thank you. We'll move on to item number 2. Announcement regarding compliance with open meeting law. City clerk, has this meeting been noticed and posted in compliance with the open meeting law?
Yes, it has. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to agenda item 3, public comment. Comment during this portion of the agenda must be limited to matters on the agenda for action. If you wish to be heard, come forward and give your name for the record. The amount of discussion as well as the amount of time any single speaker is allowed may be limited. Is there anyone wishing to be heard at this time? All right, seeing none, I will close the public comment portion and we'll move on to item number 4. Agenda item number 4 for possible action to approve the final minutes by reference of the regular meeting of April 10th, 2023. Is there a motion for approval?
Motion to approve.
There's a motion. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Please post. The motion carries. Let's move on to item number 5. Agenda item number 5, discussion for possible action regarding audits of Department of Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Affairs, payment collections. Brian Smith, Internal Audit Section Manager, would you please begin?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, Audit Committee members. Brian Smith, Internal Audit Section Manager. Our office completed payment collection audits of the 4 Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Affairs community and arts centers shown on this slide. The lead auditors for each of these sites are noted on this slide. One of these sites, the West Las Vegas Arts Center, was previously a part of the city's Office of Cultural Affairs, which merged with the Parks and Recreation Department on July 1st, 2022. Each of these audits began with an unannounced visit to the sites and a reconciliation of the cash on hand to the information within Parks payment collection software that's known as CivicRec. Struggling with that page there. All right. Our objectives in completing these audits were to determine whether customer payments are being receipted, recorded, and deposited in accordance with the department's and the city's cash handling policies and procedures. Funds are appropriately secured. Department management is monitoring compliance with cash handling policies and procedures, and system access permissions assigned to employees are appropriate for their job responsibilities. Considering there are duplicate findings in these reports, rather than having each auditor brief you on their individual reports, they will each be discussing specific findings within the reports. We have noted on the slides which reports contain each finding and recommendations with the first letter of the site. In addition, as we are completing these audits, we identified improvements that were needed in the citywide cash handling policy and procedures, and accordingly have provided recommendations to finance management. We'll proceed as follows. First, Nancy Cardoza, followed by Joe Throneberry, James Burnett, Louis Halad, and then I'll conclude this agenda item. Nancy Cardoza will start us off.
Good morning. This is Nancy Cardoza, Senior Internal Auditor responsible for Veterans Memorial Community Center. The center offers various amenities such as classrooms, a dance studio, a full-size gymnasium, and a fitness center, and also offers a variety of youth activities and classes. During the calendar year 2022, the center collected payments totaling over $265,000. Our first finding is regarding the need for improved management oversight. During the cash handling audit, we noted Parks Management is not conducting periodic cash handling audits of its locations as required by city and department policy. In addition, we noted that Finance's cash handling policy does not contain specific guidance to departments on what is expected in conducting these audits. Our first recommendation is to Parks Management. Parks Management should document and implement procedures for the completion of periodic audits of all cash handling locations. Our second recommendation is to Finance Management. Finance Management should provide direction to departments on how to appropriately comply with the city's cash handling policy, requiring departments to complete periodic audits of cash handling locations. That concludes my report. Now Joe Throneberry will now continue our presentation.
Thank you, Nancy. Good morning. I'm Joe Thornberry, Senior Forensic Auditor responsible for the audit of the Doolittle Community Center. The Doolittle Community Center offers various amenities such as classrooms, full-size gymnasium, fitness center, numerous after-school programs. During the calendar year 2022, the center collected payments totaling over $140,000. Today, I'm going to address the findings specific to non-compliance with the SAFE policy at all 4 audited locations. Our findings at the 4 centers specific to SAFEs included the SAFE combinations at Doolittle, Maribelli, and West Las Vegas Arts Center were not being changed annually or when an employee with SAFE access separated from employment. At all 4 centers, no logs were being kept of employees with access to the SAFE as required by policy. At West Las Vegas Arts Center, no log of dates of when the SAFE combination was changed was maintained at the location. And finally, lost and found items were stored in the SAFE at Doolittle, which is in violation of the department's SAFE policy. Our recommendations to Parks Management specific to the SAFEs included the following, which they have accepted and already started remediation efforts to address the observed opportunities. Parks Management should implement procedures to ensure the center staff have the SAFE combination change annually or when an employee with SAFE access separates from employment with the department or the city. Parks Management should implement procedures to ensure center staff maintain a log of all employees with access to the SAFE. Parks Management should implement procedures to ensure center staff maintain a log of the dates when the combination is changed. And finally, Parks Management should establish a location at the center that is accessible to authorized employees during business hours where lost and found items of value can be securely kept. That concludes my report. James Burnett will now continue our presentation. Thank you.
Good morning. This is James Burnett, Senior Internal Auditor, and I was the lead auditor of the audit of Maribelli. The center is known for its leagues, preschool programs, and a variety of other activities. The center features special events room, dance studio, gymnasium, gymnastics rooms, a secured tot lot, a preschool classroom, teaching kitchen, and game room. During the calendar year 2022, the center collected payments totaling over $210,000. During our review of the active Civic Rec users assigned to the center as of February 22nd, 2023, we found that one employee who had transferred to another city department on May 1st, 2022, inappropriately still had access to the Civic Rec. We recommend that Parks Management document and implement procedures requiring that Civic Rec system administrators be notified when a Parks employee transfers to another city department. Furthermore, we recommend that Parks Management should document and implement procedures requiring Parks Management to conduct periodic reviews of the appropriateness of the access of Civic Rec users. That concludes my report. Louis Halad will now continue our presentation.
Good morning, Louis Halad. I'm your Senior IT Auditor, and I was lead auditor for the report on the West Las Vegas Arts Center. The West Las Vegas Arts Center, pictured here with its beautiful, iconic Queen of the Arts sculpture at the entrance, is a neighborhood cultural facility located right next to the Doolittle Community Center here downtown. The center offers a variety of classes, art exhibitions, and performance spaces for the community. and the city employees there help young artists to use visual arts, music, dance, theater, and spoken word to participate in civil engagement through artistic expression. It's a wonderful center. I recommend you visit it. Being an arts center, this site operates somewhat differently than the other parks facilities we've discussed. Compared to the pools and the fitness centers, they tend to handle fewer cash transactions, and thus they have smaller, less frequent bank deposits. Along with the recommendations on management oversight and safe policy exceptions already covered, we had a few additional findings as we observed operations at the center. Our first finding is unsecured funds. While transactions at the West Las Vegas Arts Center typically see cash going directly into the register, the staff reported that there were sometimes periods of unusually high activity that required them to open 2 lines for transactions in order to get through the rush. Because the center only has 1 cash drawer, the employee running the second line would store money in a metal cash box, just a little box, a little metal box with a lid that opens with a hinge like that, and they'd store it under the counter, and sometimes it would be unattended in a desk drawer for a short time until the money was later introduced into the cash drawer. We noted that this cash box did not have a working lock mechanism, so there's a concern about security of funds. Our recommendation to Parks Management is to coordinate training activities for the center's employees on the existing cash handling policies, including the requirements for appropriate cash storage. Additionally, we recommend that Parks Management evaluate the need for an additional cash drawer or other lockable container to support the center's operations. Our next finding is inadequate tracking of change funds. A change fund is money entrusted to a city facility, usually in small bills, for the purpose of making change for customers during cash transactions. That'll be $16 out of 20, here's your change. That's what the change fund is for. We found that the center has only 1 change fund in the amount of $20. This fund is kept in the safe and not regularly broken down into smaller bills than a single 20. Instead, the center staff has been requesting that customers provide exact change for any transactions. Previously, the center did have a second change fund in the amount of $150, but the assigned custodian of that change fund was relocated from the West Las Vegas Arts Center to another cultural center run by the city, and that employee took the change fund with them to the new site. This is part of some position shuffling that happened during the pandemic, and finance ultimately did not get notified that the change fund had moved to a different site. In reviewing the city's change funds policy, as well as discussing with finance, we discovered that there is no established process to be followed when a change fund custodian is transferred within a department to a new site. So it's difficult to say that the department didn't follow proper procedure. It's more that no procedure exists around this particular situation. We recommend that Parks Management should evaluate the available change funds at the center and determine whether these funds adequately support the site's operations. Additionally, we have made a recommendation to Finance Management that they should provide direction to departments on what procedures to follow when a change fund custodian transfers within a department like this. The next finding is lack of procedures for transporting deposits to a bank. The city utilizes an armored car service to securely transport deposits from most of its cash handling sites to the bank. This armored car service does not visit the West Las Vegas Arts Center due to the center's infrequent and small cash transactions, which I mentioned earlier. For context, in 2022, there were 20 deposits over the entire year, totaling less than $1,500. So very small transactions, or cash transactions. So it doesn't make sense for an armored car to visit the site every day. At the time of this audit, a single employee from the center was driving each deposit bag to a downtown bank themselves, as needed, which we thought could raise possible safety concerns. In reviewing the center's deposit processes and relevant policies and procedures, we have determined that the center staff have not been provided with directions on what precautions should be taken when transporting deposits to the bank. We recommend that Parks Management evaluate this deposit process and outline procedures for the safe and secure transport of their deposits to the bank. In coordination with this, we also ask that Finance Management provide direction to city staff on the safeguards and precautions that should be practiced when transporting deposits to the bank. And our last finding today is employees not trained on department procedures. So a little background. 1 year ago, as Brian mentioned, the Office of Cultural Affairs, who ran this site, merged with the Department of Parks and Recreation to form the new Department of Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Affairs. we have found that pre-merger, the Department of Parks and Recreation did have department-specific cash handling procedures as required by city policy. But the Office of Cultural Affairs, who ran this site, did not have their own department-specific cash handling procedures. Now that they're the same department, all centers, including cultural centers like this one, are covered by the Parks Department procedures. While these procedures are in place across the new department, we found that the center's employees were not aware of or trained on their new department's cash handling procedures. And so we recommend that Parks Management ensure that all cultural center employees who handle cash are trained on the department's cash handling procedures. That concludes my report. I'll hand it back to Brian Smith for the remainder of this item. Thank you.
Brian Smith, Internal Audit Section Manager. We'd like to thank staff and management of the Department of Finance and the Department of Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Affairs for their help with all of these audits. They are supportive of our findings and recommendations, and their responses can be found at the back of each one of those reports. I'd now be glad to answer any questions you may have, as well as Steve Ford, Director of Parks, Recreation, Cultural Affairs. And let's see, do we have any representatives from Finance? There we go, there's Susan, okay. And Susan's here.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. So before I get to questions from the committee, I have a couple of questions myself. So is there any evidence in these audits that money is missing, or do the policies just need tightening up?
Brian Smith, Internal Audit Section Manager. No, we did not find any evidence of missing funds during these audits. But as you can see from our findings, much of it relates to the need of improving the procedures being followed by management, as well as the documented policies and procedures.
And do we take credit card, debit, Venmo, and this is just the cash portion that we're talking about?
Brian Smith, Internal Audit Section Manager. Yes, we do take cash, credit cards, and checks. I don't know about Venmo. I don't think we're taking Venmo yet. But our audits, of course, greater risk exists with the cash that's handled. As we did our detailed testing of a sample of daily deposits, we did include credit cards and checks within that testing to make sure that the proper closeout procedures were being followed at each of the sites.
And so my last question before I go to the committee, when can we see these recommendations being completed?
Brian Smith, Internal Audit Section Manager. Madam Chair, as you know, at the back of each one of the reports, management has provided their action plan as well as an estimated date of completion by when they expect to have fully addressed the recommendations. And that recommendation, until that date passes, stays in a classification of not due. Once that date passes, then it becomes incomplete. And as we have typically done with the committee, twice a year we brief you on all incomplete audit recommendations. So the next audit committee meeting will be briefing you on all incomplete recommendations.
Okay, do I have any questions from the committee?
Hi.
Great.
Member Eric Price, Brian. So in each individual audit, the procedures for each individual center are compared to their procedures to make sure they're correct. Are the procedures between each center compared for consistency overall, that all centers are operating consistently from like an operational efficiency standpoint, and those roll up into the greater city and park procedures? So I guess I'm asking, are they internally consistent, and that's what each audit does, but are all of them looked at as a comprehensive whole to see that they're consistent within each center for that greater efficiency?
Brian Smith, Internal Audit Section Manager. Thank you for that question. To Parks' credit, they have some of the best department procedures that we've encountered here at the city. Due in part, we have been involved with Parks over the years and provided different recommendations related to their procedures, and they have a complete set of department procedures that apply to all of these sites. Now, they do separate, they have a separate set of procedures for the municipal pools as well as Floyd Lamb Park, because of the unique nature of the operations of those sites. But like I said, to their credit, they do have good documented procedures, and they do apply to all of the different community centers. And so as we were doing these audits, we're referring back to those department procedures for all of the sites. Yeah, yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councilwoman Polensky for the record. Mr. Smith, can you tell me more about the Civic Rec software? Is it possible for us to collect payment over that platform?
Brian Smith, Internal Audit Section Manager. Yes, in fact, all of the sites are using Civic Rec, and so all the deposits are processed through Civic Rec, including cash, credit cards.
I mean, can a person go online? My daughter, I took my daughter to Mirabelli as a gymnast and a ballerina, neither of which she is. But can I, as a parent, go on a website somewhere and have a credit card transaction online and never have to interact with a staff person at Mirabelli?
Yes, Brian Smith, Internal Audit Section Manager. Yes, in fact, Parks and Recreation has a really good websites, and they encourage use of the website for registering for classes and events
And paying?
and for paying. Yes.
Okay. It seems if you add up all the money for these 4 locations, it's the cash portion, $64,979, which seems like a very small amount of cash. As a person who owns a business that's very cash heavy for 17 years, our cash handling procedures here at the city are pretty antiquated. I'd love to see us at some point be cashless. It seems like the remedy to all of this is to move away from collecting cash and doing everything online and payments being credit card based.
Brian Smith, Internal Audit Section Manager. Yes, I think that would be great. Of course, over the years that I've been here, there still continues to be a need to serve the customers to be able to accept cash. But that's certainly something that management could look at if they wanted to move in that direction.
Okay, thank you.
I did have one question about West Las Vegas Arts Center, how close it is to Doolittle, and it is such the least cash one you said. Any thought into just having a procedure to walk it over to Doolittle so they can do the deposit through Doolittle instead? I mean, I've played a few games at Doolittle in my day. It's very, very close. It's not like it's very far away from the new Arts Center. Seems like it'd be a simple thing to me.
Brian Smith, Internal Audit Section Manager. In fact, that's a great observation, and they have already implemented that, and they are taking it over there. And there are other sites throughout the city. For example, the Pavilion Pool takes their deposits over to Veterans Memorial. Now, of course, there still need to be proper procedures for transporting that cash. For example, with the Pavilion Pool and Veterans Memorial, that's a long walk between the Pavilion Pool and Veterans Memorial, and you don't want to be waving that bag around. And so we did not, when we're looking at the citywide cash handling policies and procedures, we don't see any discussion of the secure transportation of cash, whether that's from a community center or to another community center or to a bank. So we've asked finance to add that to the cash handling policies and procedures.
I tend to agree with Councilwoman Polanski that we are kind of antiquated with the cash system, and maybe we can look at Venmo and Zelle and some other options. Just a thought.
Brian Smith, Internal Audit Section Manager. Definitely. I'm not sure if Mr. Ameling would like to address that, but over the years, there has been an increased push for the use of credit cards.
Thank you. Gary Ameling, Chief Financial Officer. Yes, we've seen a dramatic shift in payments towards non-cash payments over the course of the almost 7 years that I've been here, and we will continue to see that shift. We do want to make sure that we are accessible to the entirety of our population, and some of them do not have very good access to certain types of payment methodologies, and so we want to make sure that we're accessible and open to everybody. So we are still currently handling cash transactions at most of our facilities. There are a few exceptions to that. We've been talking recently about Floydland Park as possibly going cashless, and so we are looking at opportunities where it does make sense to look into that type of technological improvement.
All right, thank you. So may I have a motion?
Motion to accept the report?
Yes.
Thank you.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Please post. Thank you. The motion carries. We will move on to item number 6. Item number 6, report by staff regarding current audits. Brian Smith, Internal Audit Section Manager, we will also give this report. Please go ahead, Mr. Smith.
Brian Smith, Internal Audit Section Manager. Our office is currently working on additional payment collection sites in other departments and also an audit of IT assets hardware. That concludes my report.
Are there any questions from the committee? This item is report only and no motion is required. We'll move on to item number 7. Agenda item number 7, discussion for possible action on the annual audit plan, fiscal year 2023-2024. Radford Snelding, City Auditor, will present the annual audit plan for fiscal year 2023-2024. Please proceed, Mr. Snelding.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Radford Snelding, City Auditor. The City Auditor's Office audits from an annual audit plan. The plan identifies performance audits selected for the fiscal year. We audit on a cyclical 5-year audit plan. The City of Las Vegas has 12 departments and 6 offices. We plan to audit each department 4 times during that audit cycle, and each of the offices 2 times. We plan to complete 12 audits during fiscal year 2023-2024, the current fiscal year. By way of background, we will determine the scope, the objectives, and audit of the audit by identifying the performance measures of the entity and selecting areas that present the greatest risk exposure. The plan allows for computer assistance on audits, follow-ups, investigations, and other miscellaneous activities. By approving this audit plan, the City Auditor's Office can initiate these audits without having to return to the Audit Committee to obtain authorization. And this concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Snelding. Do we have any questions from the members? Seeing none, may I have a motion?
Motion to approve the audit plan?
There's a motion. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Please post. The motion carries. Thank you. We'll move on to item number 8. Agenda item number 8, discussion regarding topics for future agenda items. Comments made during this portion of the agenda by individual members shall refer solely to proposals for future agenda items, and any discussion shall be limited to whether or not such proposed items are within the purview of the committee, and or whether such proposed items shall be placed on a future agenda. No discussion regarding the substance of any such proposed topic shall occur, and no action shall be taken. Does anyone have suggestions regarding future agenda item topics? Seeing none, we will move on to item number 9. Agenda item number 9 is citizens' participation. Public comment during this portion of the agenda must be limited to matters within the jurisdiction of the committee. No subject may be acted upon by the committee unless that subject is on the agenda and is scheduled for action. If you wish to be heard, come forward and give your name for the record. The amount of discussion on any single subject, as well as the amount of any time any single speaker is allowed, may be limited. Is there anyone wishing to be heard at this time? Seeing none, I'll close citizens' participation and we'll move on to agenda item number 10, which is adjournment. The next Audit Oversight Committee meeting is scheduled for Monday, October 9th, 2023. And with that, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.